be out there selling. And we always had to make it fun. So those are the things you have to remember. Sales, focus, don't get out of whack with just being thrown all over the map. Stick to what you know and know what your core competencies are. And sales and knowing what selling your product have got to be along. So those are 3 easy things that every entrepreneur that's ever been successful has had to be good at. So with that, rather than talking for a long time, I promised Randy and Jeff that I'd open it up for questions, because the questions are usually better than what I have to say anyways. So if there's any questions out there, I'll be happy to answer them. All these entrepreneurs, somebody's got to have something.
Would you like a frozen margarita?
No, after the game maybe, but yeah.
So we took questions from the students beforehand, because we knew you had a limited time.
Okay, we got some questions already?
Okay. The timing for the entry and exit for your investments has been pretty amazing. Can you share with us a little bit about your decision-making process for entry and exit in new ventures? If you were an MBA student today, what kinds of opportunities would you pursue and why?
Great questions. You know, people think I'm lucky, and I love it, because I am. I was lucky when I started my first business when I was 12 years old selling garbage bags door to door, because I was lucky enough to know that no one's going to say no to a 12-year-old kid going door to door selling garbage bags, because you need them, right? You might as well buy them from the kid because you feel sorry for the kids schlepping these garbage bags door to door. I was lucky when I had a bar at Indiana University, my senior year project at IU, yeah. I took over a bar, and it was like, I wasn't even 21 yet, the drinking age, and it was like, if no one showed up the first night, there wouldn't have been a second night. And I was lucky we had a line around the block. I was lucky we got busted for having a wet t-shirt contest, and the girl who won was only 16 years old and on probation for prostitution, because had that not happened, I still might be running a bar in Bloomington, Indiana. I was lucky when I got my first job when I moved to Dallas, living 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment, because my first job was a company called Your Business Software, and I worked hard, and within 8 months I was the #1 salesperson. And I called up my boss and I said, look, I want to close this deal, but one of my responsibilities, it was a retail store, was sweeping the floor, wiping down the windows, and opening up the store. I'm like, I got everything's covered. I want to close this deal. It's a $1,500 commission. I'll go buy new towels. I'm tired of my same Holiday Inn towels that I stole when I was a kid in college. They're ratty. I need some new towels. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a no-brainer. And my boss said no. So I'm thinking, okay, when I show him the check, he'll change his mind. So I was covered. I went and picked up the check, showed him $15,000, $1,500 commission for me. He fired me, which led me, again, another lucky break, because that led me to start my company, my first big company, Micro Solutions, which turned into probably the 3rd local area network integrator in the country. This is back in the 80s when people didn't even know what a local area network was. And we built that up, and I sold it for, I think we sold for $6 million when I was 29, maybe I just turned 30, which was a lucky break because it allowed me to buy a lifetime pass in American Airlines. I went, I had to go celebrate. It's a New Orleans tradition, even in Dallas. And so I got drunk with my buddy, said, what am I going to do with this money I just made? I want to buy a lifetime pass in American Airlines and go out and get drunk and have fun with as many people as possible, which I did. Because that was lucky, because it was so lucky because one of the guys I drank with, one of my good buddies, was Todd Wagner. We were hungover, and so it's like, there's got to be a way that we can listen to Indiana University basketball over the internet. This was 1995, early 95, maybe late 94. What a great idea if we could figure out how to do that, because this was back before all the regional sports networks and DirecTV and everything. And I'm like, that's a really cool idea. Let's start a company. So, I made the lucky decision of buying a PC and an ISDN router and teaching myself how all this stuff worked. And we started AudioNet and got all the streaming rights and all these things you're seeing YouTube and other people do with audio and video. And, we grew it and added video and became broadcast.com. And in 1998, we went public and got lucky. It was the biggest IPO in the history of the stock market, luckily. And then just a year later, we were lucky and we sold it to Yahoo, that was truly luck. But the point is, you're going to feel, timing comes from failing. Timing comes from failing. You can fail 100,000 times. Doesn't matter how many times you fail. When you get it right, if it's big enough, they're going to tell you you're lucky. And so when people tell you you're lucky, it's the best thing that ever could happen to you. Now, in terms of really timing, you know, when we sold broadcast.com, it was in January of 2000, and it was almost near the top of the internet bubble. And I had been through my first company, Micro Solutions, and I had seen in the mid-'80s PC software, IPO stocks go through the roof and come down. The late '80s, local area networking stocks go through the roof and come down. You know, early '90s, different types of PC stocks go through the roof and come down. And there was no reason to believe that the same thing wasn't going to happen to internet stocks. So despite me telling everybody in their company, we had 300 people who became millionaires on paper, and I told everybody to do the exact same thing. A lot of people drank the Kool-Aid and said, oh, it's going to go up forever. I'm like, go ahead for it, go for it. I'm not taking that chance. I like having that B next to my name. And so I got lucky because I wasn't greedy. But in terms of timing, you got to do your homework. Because one of the things that entrepreneurs don't do sometimes is you get focused and I'll just say it the way it is. There's no balance in an entrepreneur's life. Deal with it. You know, I can't tell you, I told you about my first company, Micro Solutions. I went 7 years without taking a vacation. 7 years. That's not to say I didn't go out a couple of times here and there, but 7 years without a vacation. I had, you know, people say, what about relationships? What about families? I mean, I can tell you exactly what I told my girlfriends. I mean, they were like, it's me or your business. And I'm like, me or my business? I'm like, what's your name? It's hard. I mean, if you're thinking you're just going to come in and run a business and balance it with your family, it's not easy. And honestly, you're behind the 8 ball because there's somebody at Tulane, there's somebody at LSU, there's somebody in Indiana, there's somebody somewhere else who doesn't have a car payment, doesn't have a house payment, who's like I was, sleeping 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment, writing checks to each other so that, you know, none of the checks would bounce at the same time. I mean, that's literally what we did, and that's what you're competing against. And so you've got to recognize there's choices. There's choices if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. And you've got to figure out how to not have balance in your life. And that's how I got lucky. Because, you know, I gave up some things and waited on some things and worked at some things and failed at a lot of things. And, you know, that's part of the equation. Next question.
This is a good